Tonight, Cronkite News is taking you full circle. Our goal is to be transparent in our planning and reporting the news of the day, so we are taking you from pitch to prime time and even inside our post-newscast meeting. We'll document the work of our reporters, editors, and producers as we prepare stories for our Arizona PBS audience and for cronkitenews.azpbs.org. We hope you enjoy this look behind the scenes. This is Cronkite News Full Circle.
Okay. We've been covering Prop 127. Mm-hmm. Now you know a whole lot about it and the interesting things about it. And so we obviously are interested. There's been so much information going back and forth with the two sides, and some of it is information that's not clear. So we'd like to do some sort of fact check with that. Mm-hmm. I think we all kind of agree that's the next step in this. This is a fact-finding mission
based on the claim that one side made.
Right.
Yeah, he's the source. He's the one who's is claiming Arizona's energy mix is already 50% clean.
Yep.
So we need to know where he got that. Yeah.
So there are certain things, like one is getting the statement, and think of it as like steps, right? So one is taking a look at the statement, and then it's sort of saying, okay, well, who are the players and where did this statement come from? So then you'll have to say, okay, well, this came from Matt Benson on Twitter. You're going to reach out to him. You're going to talk to him about where he got this information, right? It's really important to look at definitions. And with this particular fact check, it is that, it's, at least to me, it is that word clean. So let's go and then define what clean means. And so there's an opportunity there to go talk to some experts about that.
Okay, so because Matthew Benson did not make the original claim that we're looking into, it was made by Steve Pierce, and so I'm trying to find his contact information now to reach out to him to kind of ask where he was getting this information from. Even if someone has a Twitter profile, his latest post was February 23rd. So I will DM him. However, I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope just because he doesn't seem to be entirely active at the moment. So fingers crossed we hear back something. This is Rachel Charlton. I'm a reporter for Cronkite News at Arizona PBS. Thank you. Bye-bye. So this is kind of where we're looking to compare this idea that Arizona gets 50% of its energy from clean energy, because when you look at this, even if nuclear were to be included, 22.5 plus 10.2 doesn't quite add up to 50%, which is that's the claim. There's a lot of different numbers, and again, it kind of boils back to, other states, they have a Department of Energy that would look at these numbers and the utility companies and compile data and information based on those reports. However, since the Arizona Corporation Commission does not compile that data, you kind of have to go either on the national scale with the EIA or go based on what the utility companies are saying. And they're saying two completely different things.
Like, our point with doing this is to go to the source of where it came from,
right? Which
is Steve Pierce and the column that he wrote for the Prescott newspaper.
Yeah.
So it's gonna take a little effort. Mm-hmm. It's not gonna be easy. But you're doing all the right things. Okay.
Well, I'll kind of explore reaching out to the Senate.
And in the meantime, you can be looking at this idea of clean and what that means.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. So we just called the Arizona Senate to see if Steve Pierce left any contact information after he retired, and they said that they did not have anything left for him. Okay, so earlier this morning I had reached out to Martin Pasqualetti. He is a professor at the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning at ASU. And I wanted to kind of get his take on how the word clean is being used right now in regards to Proposition 127, with the claim that 50% of Arizona's energy makeup is already clean. So I wanted to kind of get his take on that. And he said, and I quote, "Claiming that nuclear power is clean is like saying a poke in the eye doesn't hurt. It is an example of misdirection, a favorite technique of magicians." And he went on to say that it's It's a claim to be used at worst to confuse the public and provide cover for the utility company that uses it. Hi Steve, this is Rachel Charlton. I'm a reporter for Cronkite News at Arizona PBS, and I am reaching out to you in regards to a column that you wrote for the Daily Courier in Prescott. If you could please give me a call back. Okay. So last week I got a hold of Steve Pierce. We ended up talking on the phone for a couple minutes, and he seemed pretty hesitant to do an interview this week, and so he wasn't sure about what his schedule was looking like, and so he asked to get a hold of him on Friday to see if he had a time to figure out his schedule. And I have not heard back from him since then. So gonna do some recon today, kind of reach out to him again and see what's going on and if he's still available to talk. So within this claim that we're looking at, this claim that Arizona's energy makeup is already 50% clean, what's your take on that, given your history with this sector?
Right. Well, it depends on how you're defining clean.
So I just wrapped up an interview with Amanda Ormond. She was the former director of the Arizona Energy Office. That office is no longer as it used to be. It has been essentially shuttered. And so it was really important to talk to a source like Amanda to get an idea of how this information surrounding energy and the energy makeup of the state has changed since such a crucial department has basically been taken off the radar for the state. As Amanda mentioned, Arizona is the only state to not have a Department of Energy at the current state. So getting an interview with her was very crucial to this fact check. Those are all like screenshots and like, because that's what I have for all this data is like screen grabs.
Okay.
So
we need to rebuild those.
Yep, that's what I'm bringing all the links up right now.
Okay, so how long do you think it's going to take you to build those?
15 minutes.
Okay. All right. So you're rolling with it, which
I'm
is
rolling
good.
with it.
I will let Melanie know where we are, and we will do a watch through.
Yeah.
Probably around 2:30, 2:40, but we're going to be cutting things a little close, and that's okay. Like, we'll just focus.
Yeah.
You got it. Okay.
So what happened was the computer shut down and all the screenshots that I've been using for the documents that I'm going to have in the package, those were not saved in the hard drive. Lesson learned. And so when the computer shut down, my package is still here, but all of those documents that were saved to the desktop are now lost. So I'm having to recreate those documents and the sequences within them.
Our team compiled candidate profiles and in-depth reports on ballot initiatives. You can check it out at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The coffee mix is already 50% clean is hard to fact check. If you combine nuclear with renewables, it still doesn't add up to 50% of Arizona's current energy makeup. So that claim is false.
Millions of dollars have poured into the fight for and against Proposition 127. The initiative would regulate state utility companies to produce 50% of their energy from renewable sources, like wind and solar. There are a lot of claims about Prop 127. We sent Cronkite News reporter Rachel Charlton to fact check one of them.
The claim is this: Arizona's energy mix is already 50% clean. I traced this statement back to an opinion piece by former Arizona Senator Steve Pierce, a rancher in Prescott. Pierce's anti-Prop 127 op-ed was published last month in the Prescott Daily Courier. Matthew Benson, a spokesman for Arizonans for Affordable Electricity, retweeted an excerpt from Pierce's op-ed. When I asked Pierce where that claim came from, he couldn't provide a source, and he declined interview requests, citing his busy schedule. So is Arizona's energy mix 50% clean? Nuclear energy accounts for about 22.5%, and renewables are about 10%. That's according to the Energy Information Administration. Those numbers add up to slightly more than 32%, not 50%. But here's the thing, this fact check really comes down to one word: clean.
When people hear clean, I think a lot of times they do think about renewable energy, but it's not being used that way in this context.
Amanda Ormond used to direct the now defunct Arizona Energy Office.
Through policy that's being considered at the Arizona Corporation Commission, and then also by Arizona Public Service Company itself, the word clean includes nuclear energy.
Proposition 127 does not include nuclear energy in the ballot language. University of Utah law professor Lincoln Davies says clean is often a catch-all for renewable energy.
What you're trying to do is to promote renewables, then clean doesn't capture nuclear. But if what you're talking about is you're trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions or mitigate climate change, then using clean to include nuclear certainly is a fair characterization.
Nuclear energy is often referred to as clean energy because it has effectively zero greenhouse gas emissions in generating electricity. However, most people associate the word clean with renewable energy, which nuclear is not. Nuclear material is a non-renewable resource. Davies said that the language used in these claims should be clear and reflect the policy goals. It's language like the word clean that ASU environmental and sustainability professor of law Troy Rule says can mislead voters.
To refer to nuclear power from Palo Verde as clean might give voters an impression that it is on par in the same way that wind and solar are, when that's just simply not the case.
So this claim that Arizona's energy mix is already 50% clean is hard to fact check. If you combine nuclear with renewables, it still doesn't add up to 50% of Arizona's current energy makeup. So that claim is false. As for the word clean, it often gets associated with renewables, but the definitions are different. To be clear, Prop 127 is about renewable energy, like solar, wind, geothermal, not nuclear. In the broadcast center, Rachel Charlton, Cronkite News.
Okay, so this volley goes to Rachel because even though you've had a valuable lesson learned that everyone should have completely locked down by now, you remained very calm when everything was crashing around you. And part of this business is staying calm in moments of crises, whether that's production or you're covering a conflict or whatever. So this volley goes to you. Congratulations.
So this particular story, it was a lot different than the general coverage of Prop 127 that I did before. It was very narrow. We were looking at one specific claim, and so it was kind of something to wrap my head around in the beginning, but then as we got the ball rolling, it was kind of nice to just focus on one issue instead of looking at this broad issue. So that was something that was nice at the beginning. However, when you're trying to fact check something, in journalism, you always want to cover your bases regardless, but when you're fact checking and you're trying to prove something true or false, diligence is just of the utmost importance. And so that was something that we just really wanted to make time for, is to make sure that we were doing all the research necessary. We were making all the efforts to contact people, to get their voice heard. And that was something that was kind of difficult, with the story, was that the main source for this claim was not available for interview, and that was something that we did not expect at the beginning, but it did happen, and we still had to get this story out by deadline, and so that was something that we kind of just had to roll with.
This election day, depend on Cronkite News for coverage on Arizona's hotly contested midterm races. Learn more about the candidates and propositions in Arizona's ballots on cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Watch live on Election Day at 5 p.m. on Arizona PBS with the latest as Arizonans hit the polls. Then join us at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live and on Arizona PBS World for live coverage and reactions to the results.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
We're back with more behind-the-scenes footage here on Cronkite News Full Circle.
Here's the rundown for the debate. Here's how things are going to go. The debate starts at 5. You will not have access to the candidates before. They'll be in their green rooms, they'll be prepping, they'll be getting makeup on and all that fun stuff. So you guys, there'll be an area set up where you can watch the debate. hopefully at the end, the candidates will stick around so we can ask them some questions. They may bolt. I don't know. But we will be ready and prepared.
That's really all that matters right now. You look great. That's okay. That's it.
You look almost lifelike.
You got a good shot.
Good evening and welcome to the special election 2018 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons.
Now, multiple years now, I've made it clear we needed more accountability.
Under your administration, community colleges were zeroed out. And when you zero out community colleges, you zero out opportunity.
I believe, Angel, you wanted to get in here?
Yeah, with all due respect, Governor, I think Mr. Garcia and the governor are missing the point.
He takes endorsements from organizations that are radical left-wing.
Thank you for watching this special election 2018 edition of Arizona Horizons.
And work with them after he's elected. We have a plan that's moving forward to not only deliver on a 20% pay increase, we have a plan to get hours over and above. We've been doing that. We had some problems to solve. We had some belt tightening to do. We had $1 billion.
So how are you feeling about that?
I'm actually feeling great. I took some good advice as far as like writing down time codes. So really what I did was I just wrote it because it was an hour. I didn't have to like keep ridiculous time. So it was like, if it was like the 55th minute, I just wrote 55 and then like a blurb, and then at the end, like who said it. These are some of my notes.
My plan tonight is to get all of this onto a Google Doc so that I can see what it looks like in real words or these are scribbles. And then I'll pair it up tomorrow with the footage and be able to figure out how we want to go with the story. Yeah, my plan for tonight is to eat some food, get some rest so I can come back tomorrow and, go hard after the story. So.
All right, Tanaya, debate, how did it go?
It went great. It went really great. We got some great stuff. I took your advice, writing down time code. So because it was an hour, I was able to just write the minute, which was like perfect. So got up quite a few shots to pull and then look through and then fit into a story.
I am gonna go through the debate footage and pair it up with my notes. That way I know, make sure that my thoughts are actually accurate, not just whatever I scribbled down. And also to make them more complete so that I could start laying down what I'd like to write out as a story. Just finished my script, the package, so I'm going to swing on over to Heather's desk to see what she thinks of it, and we're gonna make some changes and make it great.
Hey Heather, do you have your cookie?
Yes. What's up?
Thanks. So I finished up my script and I just chopped it up to eat. Yeah, so okay. I wanna make sure it's stellar.
We need education stuff in here.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was like the main. They spent almost half an hour.
Absolutely.
On education.
Okay.
So grab a bite from each. Throw Torres in there as well, and let's make sure we're trying to keep it even too with timing. So we want to make sure each candidate has the same amount of time.
With your story, especially if it's going to be about politicians, you don't ever want it to seem like you're siding with one person or that you're giving one person more of a platform than another person. That goes outside of just stories on politicians, but just a story in general. You want, as journalists, we work to be even. We work to tell all sides of the story. So, Governor Doug Ducey thinks that Garcia is inconsistent, where Garcia thinks that Ducey didn't do enough for teachers, and they each, in a way, feel like Angel Torres's thoughts on immigration are a bit far-fetched, but we have to make sure that we give each person an even amount of time to speak and to get their voices heard. Otherwise, it'll seem like we're siding with one person, and you just can't do that. The biggest driver of the conversation was education, so I'm looking for sound bites right now that are even for each candidate to discuss how they feel about education. I see what you're saying. So in place of
that Ducey bite, if you did the back and forth between Ducey and Garcia, and then followed it up with the Torres fight.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think that.
Let's try that and see how that works timing wise.
So after this, I need to show Heather the additions that I made as per her conversation, and then I will, once she clears everything, so she'll say, either okay, this is great, or she'll say, hey, like go back and maybe add this, or did you consider that? And then I would have to go in and do that. And then, but if she says this is good, which I feel like she says will be fine, I will be free to go in and start laying down my B-roll and also tracking my package. So I'm doing a dance because Heather just said that everything was great, which is awesome. Which means that we can get started on the package. 3, 2, 1. Moderator Ted Simons did his very best to keep the peace between candidates. But as the night continued, that job became easier said than done. Moderator Ted Simons did his very best to keep the peace between candidates. Okay.
Just stop that there.
What just happened was that Heather went through it again, realized that, again, as journalists, we want to make sure that we're being fair. So the sometimes when you read stuff in text as opposed to hearing it, it sounds like two completely different things. So I had something in here like Ted Simons was moderating between two people, and I said something at the end that sounded almost like he had to babysit them, and that's not something that you want. So we went through and changed that. Now it sounds a lot better. Now I'm going to actually deliver my package to the rundown for today.
Is there anything you have to do to get ready for fronting?
I wrote out what I'm gonna say, so I already know what that is. But I'll take a look at that too, my introduction and then my tag at the end, and I'll read that out and I'll be ready.
Gubernatorial candidates Governor Doug Ducey, Democratic challenger David Garcia, and Green Party candidate Angel Torres are facing off this week ahead of the November elections. We're just a few hours from round 2 of the debates, which is tonight in Tucson. Last night was the first debate where the candidates sounded off on education. Reporter Tanaya Williamson takes us to the debate.
Last night's debate sparked heated conversation as candidates Angel Torres, David Garcia, and Governor Doug Ducey sat down to discuss the state of Arizona and why they feel they're right for the position of governor. The debate began with opening remarks from each candidate as they prepared to hash out some of Arizona's hot topics, education being at the top of that list.
I have to stand here or sit here and show you my record on K-12 education, the dollars I've been able to put in over the last 3 years. But David isn't talking at all about his plan.
Invite those 75,000 teachers who were out there to join me, to go to the legislature and put another initiative on the ballot.
We can't afford to be subsidizing private school education. I'm all for if there are children with special needs in the program.
Moderator Ted Simons did his very best to keep the peace between candidates.
On a Wednesday, you mentioned that it was a political circus, and the next day went forward with 20 for 20. Why?
Let's get the facts straight on Red Fred.
Why?
Let's get the facts straight.
Will you please stop interrupting?
The debate was dominated mainly by Republican Governor Doug Ducey and Democratic candidate David Garcia.
He's a college professor. He knows the power of words. This is why if you go to factcheckgarcia.com, you'll see David in his own words talk about his border plan.
Green Party candidate Angel Torres appeared to take a back seat during the debate, but spoke up when he felt the time was right, specifically on the topic of immigration.
We need to exponentially expand the number of work and student visas that are available to people when they come to this country. They shouldn't have to wait 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years to get a piece of paper that gives them freedom to make a better life for themselves and their families.
The debate ended with a statement of the conversation not being anything personal.
My issues aren't with you as a person. They are clearly with your policies.
I think we got to stop it right there.
Tomorrow night on Arizona Horizon at 5:30, you can see the candidates for state treasurer debate. On Thursday, those running for state attorney general will face off. In the broadcast center, Tanaya Williamson, Cronkite News.
Well, debates are happening for other races across the state. Was that fun? Did
Yeah,
you enjoy it?
yeah, it was a good time. It was fun, even going through the script, trying to figure out like how it would make sense, because
I had something and Heather was like, well, what if you do it this way? And then I was like, oh wow, that makes so much sense. So, you know, it just works together. That's exactly what I said. I was like, Heather, teach me all of your ways. So yeah, that was fun.
This has been a special edition of Cronkite News Full Circle. For top Arizona news anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles. In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem. Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
Join us each week on Catalyst, the show that explores new advancements, technologies, and innovations at Arizona State University that are shaping the future for tomorrow and beyond. Catalyst, Wednesdays at 9, right here on Arizona PBS.